We are still waiting for one jury member to arrive. She is on her way from the airport, but got into a traffic jam, so hopefully just English translation is provided. If you don't have a device, please take one now. Before we begin with the presentations, I have a very sad duty to fulfill. One of our finest colleagues, a joyful friend and a great Hungarian photographer, Balázs Telek, is laid to rest as we speak in Balázs-Gyarmat, northern Hungary. We will never forget Balázs, and thankfully we have a wealth of photographs to remind us of his fascination towards panoramic images and the mysteries of the camera obscura. Besides his great body of work as a photographer, also as a founding member of the Kodema photography group, he not only founded and ran Art Basis, one of the most active community and exhibition spaces dedicated to photography in Budapest. And not only was he one of the founders of Photo Follow, a creative camp dedicated to photography too, but very importantly for us, he was also the curator of the Capa Center's opening exhibition, titled Capa Project, Contemporary Projected Images. He will truly be missed. Saddened by this 41-year-old young man leaving us, our deepest sympathies go out to his family, his wife and 3 children. I ask for a minute of silence to remember our Thank you. Established last year, the Robert Capa the Robert Capa Photography Grand Prize Hungary will be presented to the award winner for the first time in 2015. On the birth anniversary of its eponym, the Robert Capa Contemporary Photography Center established a grand prize in recognition of the work of photographers with outstanding achievements in the field of Hungarian photography. The center decided to establish the prize to emphasize its commitment to the creation of new artworks that enrich our society. The prize aims at furthering the development of the artists and encouraging their experimentation in the future. We believe this aim has partly already been achieved, so we look forward to these presentations. The Capa Grand Prize Hungary 2015 contest has come to its final phase. In May, the jury selected 3 candidates, Gábor Arion, Kudász, Gyula, Sopronyi, and Ákos, Stiller, on my right, for the grand prize of 5 million Hungarian forints in total. The mentioned shortlisted artists have since been working on their photography projects and are now to give an account on their work and progress to the jury in the form of a public presentation in the minutes to come. A warm welcome to Claire Graphic. I think I don't have to emphasize how important this prize is for us and how excited we all are about it. The main aim of today's presentations are to help the jury decide who receives the Capa Grand Prize Hungary on October the 21st. Please note that because of this, only the members of the jury will have a short time to ask questions from the fellows after each presentation, if they so wish. Before we begin, let me introduce the esteemed members of the jury. Attila Horányi, President of the jury, art historian, aesthete, associate professor at the Institute for Theoretical Studies at Nagy University of Art and Design. Please give him a round. Regina Anzenberger, owner and director of Anzenberger Gallery from Vienna, Austria. Dimitri Beck, editor-in-chief of Polka magazine from Paris, France. Claire Graphic, head of exhibitions at the Photographers Gallery in London. Péter Kornis, Kossuth Prize-winning photographer. And last but by no means least, Monika Perenyeri, art historian from the Institute of Art History of the Research Center for the Humanities at the Hungarian Academy of Sciences. The fellows of the Capa Grand Prize Hungary will present their works in alphabetical order as agreed upon earlier. So let me ask first Gábor Arion Kudász to begin with the first presentation and give him a warm welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Hello everyone. I'm trying to start. We had time to be completely nervous. Okay. So, hello everyone. Today I would like to introduce you to some ideas that I find decisive in my thinking in photography. And as you will see, the understanding of human scale is in the focus of a research that I started last year. It is easy to say that something is within or beyond human scale, but finding the boundaries, embracing everything that is human, it's rather a difficult venture. Let me start with one of my most important inspirations for this work. He's Jakub Bronowski, and he opens his magnificent book, The Ascent of Man, with the following statement. Man is a singular creature who is not just a figure in the landscape, but the shaper of the landscape, who has not found his place in the world, but made his home on every continent. Actually, in Hungarian, the word pair, figure and shape sound even more alike. Az ember nem csupán egy alak a tájban, hanem a táj alakítója. Our scale is defined by the horizon that we draw around ourselves, by the outermost limits of our senses. Most of what we know of the universe reaches us via our technology. We find our place in the world by defining our own scale. It is our greatest responsibility. Man is often referred to as a being without scale, by which we point out how far human senses reach with the help of technology, but at the same time we unwillingly admit that we are becoming unable to find the origo or our own place. Talking about scale, we use proportions, units, we measure and think in relations and ratios, micro and the macro world. The horizon, and thus scale also, exists not just in the physical. It is there when we look back in time. It limits us in temperatures, intelligence, or even in responsibility. I hope I'm not going to bore you to death. Okay. I chose my own narrow horizon that is limited enough for me to inhabit, but it is flexible enough to examine what is human. Last year, an enigmatic object accidentally got in my way, and it proved to be a perfect symbol, because many human qualities are compressed into it. It was the brake. Here you can see the entire series. Ah, it's a little bit longer. Yeah, so this is the entire series, but I won't show the whole thing to you because it would take even longer. So the first evidence of the use of this building material was found in what is today in Syria, in Tel Aswad, a 10,000-year-old small town near Damascus. Curiously enough, mathematics also emerged at the dawn of human civilization in the same region and time. There must be something common between these two. Just like in mathematics, we make bricks by splitting up the formerly continuous fabric of the material world, and we form identical units that we can later use to create new constructions that are never seen before. So brick is not just a simple building material. It's the symbol of how the universe can be cut into equal units and tool to understand it. The size of a brick is derived from human measurements. The grip of a palm, the length of a foot, the height of a man, his muscle power, or his basic necessities. Of course, it had evolved throughout history. Its size has grown, its structure and technology became more complex. But it is still adjusted to the human body. It may also have been subject of the first attempts of standardization. The human body, or actually one ideal person, a king or an emperor, was the model for old-time measurements and units. Well, many different such standards coexisted and fought their own war for survival. Even recently, when Le Corbusier developed his modular, he compiled a statistically average person who was actually another ideal being. Then another architect, Aditya Prakash, converted his modular to the Indian culture and genetic background and designed the standard brick sizes for India and the needs of Indians, the Indian people, sorry. And so standards, again, did not match. They were as different as we are. I've never seen an average person in my life. The average human being is definitely more of an illusion than giants and dwarfs. When the body becomes data, it is detached from itself. It can become a mere illustration of measurements using units that once originated from it. Let me here take a detour and ask myself whether human culture could exist without technology. The invention of the brick and the shaping of mathematical thinking, the need to measure, marked the start of the ascent of our civilization. What we call cultural evolution may be only an overlap between biological and technological life. Let me talk a little bit more about this. All life attempts either to find the surroundings in which it can thrive, or it adapts to the given circumstances, or it reproduces until it becomes capable of altering the habitat or its own, to its own likeness, to reflect it. Like rainforests that create their own humid climate by capturing water and fertilizing the ground to further propagate plant growth. On the human timescale, technology had a quite long childhood, but on a geological scale, it came as a blast. I believe as biological evolution nears the limits of its capacities, the shift to technological evolution is or was not just a possibility, but a necessity. Our symbiosis with technology is not a human achievement. It is the result of life wanting to cross its borders, to expand its horizon. We are at the right time and place to actively take part in this one. Early in the 20th century, Frank and Lillian Gilbreth carried out elaborate photographic studies to examine time and labor efficiency. And this is where we arrive to the brick factory. Their aim was to minimize wasted efforts during human work. To make people like machines. And here on the left, we can see the movements of a bricklayer doing his job the old-fashioned way, as a negative example. With automatization, these studies partly lost their relevance, as the role of the human being in the line of production seems to change and it is taken over by machines. Industrial production and individual work require quite different qualities. During my time in the brick factories, I cooperated with workers in what we can call a sensitization process. I don't know if such word exists in English. Together, we examined their role in production, and I confronted them with assignments to question the fatigue of creativity, which is supposed to be a fundamental human gift. Workers were given a chance to picture themselves as small parts of a living organism, and to formulate questions about the function and the relation to this system. We asked the question, is it important for someone who produces 18,000 bricks a day to imagine how his or her dream house would look like? And what he would build from these bricks? Or can we visualize how the individual worker feels about being just a brick in the wall or a wheel in the machine? I always wonder why don't they ask, or why don't they admit to have asked the questions for themselves? So our so-called responsibility tests were oriented to confront individual with industrial, creative with repetitive, and so on. Well, actually here, for the English speakers, I forgot to translate this one. Is on the left, I asked the worker to make a 3-view drawing of how he is doing the dishwashing at home, and then I asked to make a plan of how this brick working robot is working. And actually, it was very interesting that they made more mistakes when they were imagining the things that they do at home. So that's, for me, it was a surprise. As doubtful as it may sound, but the fully automatized brick factories that actually lay off the majority of their human workforce while improving productivity. Today's factories show the remarkable and accurate yet allegoric example of the above transition between biological and technological. The human-animal distinction, for me, seems always a little bit risky. And it proves that the human-machine contrary is similar. As Ray Kurzweil puts it, we are rapidly becoming more and more intimate with our technology. Except from where I see it, technology is not ours, it belongs to life. As rainforests create their own atmosphere, so does technology. Cities convert their surroundings and force the living organisms to adapt to the vigorous urban standards. This line of thought, the investigation of what we have built and viewing our horizons, dominated my entire photographic work since the very beginning. To finish this project, I still experiment with a mesh-like structure of images that are rich with internal and outside references, and I seek to find ways to present it, to offer more and more interpretations. And actually, a presentation is not one of these. After returning to several factories and photographing strange collections in small towns, or actually bigger towns, Veszprém, Pécs and Budapest, and after digging through image archives, I came to the conclusion that seeing the transition of life from biology to technology was the purpose of my efforts. So, thank you for your attention, and if you have questions, I'm really happy to answer.
Ask dear members if any one of you want to ask questions or later on. Yeah, because we want to ask questions after the presentation. So not to keep the audience because of us being late. So thank you very much, Arion, for the very interesting presentation. And we'll ask Gyula Sopronyi to take the stand and take the lead also. Please give him a warm welcome.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome and thank you for coming. First of all, I would like just start talk a little bit my series, and then I would like to show a slideshow, and finally I would like to present to you the newest series. So because of the complexity of my work, I would like to help the interpreter, so basically I've changed in the Hungarian language. Tehát az anyagom, amiről szó van, az a társadalom szinte minden szegmensében érzékelhető és látható. Akár egyéni szinten, közvetlen vagy közvetlenül, de mindenképpen érintettek vagyunk benne. És az egyik legmegosztóbb vita téma, nem csak Magyarországon, de talán a világon is, ez pedig a labdarúgás. Próbáltam egy olyan megközelítést alkalmazni, ami picit eltér a hagyományostól. Ez pedig abban rejlik, hogy olyan fényeket használtam, ami a stadionon belüli világot szokta megvilágítani, magyarul a reflektort. Ezáltal egy teljesen más reflexió következett, amikor a stadionon kívüli világot fényképeztem. Ugye az anyagon címe 90 perc, eddig tart egy fotballmérkőzés, és elkezdem egy vetítést a képekkel. Mint láthattuk, ebben a 90 percben teljesen megváltozik a környezet a stadionon kívüli világban. Ezt próbáltam kicsit körbejárni. Ez a projekt még a Capa Központnak az ösztöndíja előtt készült, és most egy picit áttérnék az újonnan készült anyaghoz, ami a Capa ösztöndíjával készült. Júniusban kaptuk meg az ösztöndíjat, ami azt jelenti, hogy volt kb. 4 hónapunk, hogy dolgozzunk. Ez abban volt érdekes, hogy a Magyarországon a futballszezon az pont befejeződik, illetve nem csak Magyarországon, hanem Európában sincs futballszezon, illetve a nyár közelettével értelemszerűen a világítás nem tette lehetővé, hogy villámfényes meccset fényképezzek. Ezzel ki kellett találnom, hogy folytassam az anyagot, így egy olyan helyet kellett keresnem, ahol sötét van, ahol tél van, úgyhogy az egyenlítő túloldalára kellett utazzak, és ahol futballszezon is van. Így aztán a választásom Brazíliára, azon belül is Rio de Janeiro-ra jutott. Szörnyű, tudom. De 19 lapot kellett húzni, valamit muszáj volt csinálni, megkaptam az ösztöndíjat, így aztán nyáron óriási meleg volt, úgyhogy mentem egy kicsit hűsölni. Amiből nagyon érdekes volt számomra, hiszen a magyarországi helyzetet nagyjából ismerjük, és érdekes volt szembesülni azzal, hogy Brazíliában, ahol 2014-ben futballvilágbajnokságot rendeztek, hogy már előtte is mekkora nagy társadalmi feszültséget okozott az, hogy rendkívül sok pénzt ölnek a futball VB-re, stadionokat építenek, miközben az oktatás és az egészségügynek az alapvető ellátása sincs megoldva. Ez a mai napig nem megoldott, hiszen 2016-ban egy olimpiát szeretnének rendezni, és azok a negatív reakciók mai napig nem múlnak, sőt, nagyon erős Brazíliában az utcai művészet, a graffiti, és ennek hangot is adnak, hogy a futball VB, illetve később az olimpia milyen hatással van az országra. Leginkább azok az emberek sínlik meg, akik favellákban, különböző nyomornegyedekben élnek, hiszen Rióban a majdnem 7 milliós lakosságból 32% a favellákban, nyomornegyedekben él. Ők azok, akik a legjobban kiszolgáltatottabbak egy ilyen stadion építésnek és az egész döntéshozóknak. Az összefüggéseket magyar viszonylatban próbáltam először összehasonlítani, hiszen ugyan különböző anyagról van szó, de mivel két dolog van, óhatatlanul próbáltam összehasonlítani a két dolgot, ami később egy zsákutca volt, hiszen ez eléggé leszűkítette azokat a dolgokat, a vizuális dolgokat leszűkítette, hiszen két teljesen különböző anyagról van szó. Aztán elkezdtem ezen gondolkodni, hogy akkor ezen túl kell lépnem, és az ollót kinyitni, tehát hogy több lehetőség van ebbe, hiszen más országokban más különböző téma merülhet föl. Itt a magyar viszonylatban van hasonlóság téren, hogy viszonyulnak az emberek a fotballhoz, hiszen az, hogy a stadionon belül tudjuk, hogy milyen erős szociális kötődés alakul ki, akár a szurkolók között, akár a nézők és a pályán a játékosok között, úgy ez a figyelem abszolút nem övezi a stadionon kívüli világot. Úgyhogy erre próbáltam fókuszálni, hogy míg épülnek a stadionok, és utcák, házak, terek, akár nagy lakónegyedek tűnnek el egy stadionépítési projektnél, ezzel együtt eltűnnek velük az emberi sorsok is, amik ott voltak. A másik számomra fontos dolog az, hogy a technika fejlődésével és a különböző környezetvédelmi előírásoknak megfelelően a fényszennyezést korlátozzák a városokban. Ami azt jelenti, hogy egyre kevésbé engedélyeznek olyan stadionokat, amelyiknél kiszűrődik a lámpafénye. Illetve szorosan összefügg a különböző technikai fejlesztésekkel és az építészeti megoldásokkal, ahol ezeket a dolgokat kiszűrik. Tehát ez egy eltűnőben lévő dolog lesz, hiszen az új stadionok már nem fogják engedni ki a fényt. Így nem tudunk reflektálni, vagy nem tudok én reflektálni ilyen módon a stadion, mint intézményéről kialakított képünkről. Ezt jelennel kísérve azt próbáltam egy picit, hogy elkezdeném, hogy számomra mit jelentett, az azért egy picit tévút, hogyha elkezdeném kifejteni, hogy én mit gondolok a futballról és az egész intézményről. Azért egy picit tévút talán, hiszen amikor én elkezdtem fotografálni, fényképezni, akkor én a dokumentarista dolgot követtem, tehát eseményt lefényképezni és azt visszaadni. Aztán történt egy változás 2012-ben, amikor is ezek személyes okokból és a munkám során kiderült, hogy a különböző konfliktuszónában, ahol jártam, hogy nem sikerül azokat a dolgokat átadnom, amit egyébként hivatott voltam, hogy akár egy háborús zónában is olyan képeket készítsek, ami megérinti az embereket. Ezeket a tapasztalatokat nem tudtam képek által átadni, és ahogy látjuk a kollégáink se, hiszen látjuk a mai helyzetet, hogy legutóbbi 2012-ben, amikor Líbiában jártam, hiába jártak be nemzetközi helyeken ezek a képek sok helyen, nem érték el előhatást. Úgyhogy elkezdtem ezen gondolkodni, hogy mi végre fogok én fényképezni, hogy fogok olyan dolgot átadni, ami megérinti, és gondolatokra készteti az embert. Így olyan megoldást választottam, ahol mindenkinek van valami köze a fotográfiához, vagy a fotballhoz, de mindenki a saját szűrőjén keresztül fogja ezt érzékelni. Tehát országtól, nemzettől függetlenül mást fognak gondolni ezekről a képekről. Az tényleg egy véletlen egybeesés, hogy a brazil és a magyar vonatkozás nagyon-nagyon párhuzamba fut nálunk, de más országban más kérdéseket vethet föl. Úgyhogy ezt szeretném majd tovább folytatni, hogy ezeket a dolgokat kicsit tovább görgetve új kérdésekre kapjak választ. Köszönöm szépen!
So, let's get back to English. Thank you very much for Gyula's presentation. Any questions from the jury at this time? No. All right. So, it seems our last, but by no means least, thank you, fellow is up on the stage. So I'll give over the floor to Ákos Stiller. Please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you, everybody. I would like to present you my story, Roma Bible. And by first doing so, I would like to share it with you why I have chosen this subject. As a photojournalist, I'm working a lot in eastern and northern Hungary, and there I witnessed under which circumstances the Roma people there are living in. I share no new information with you, I guess, that when I'm saying that most of them lost their job after the regime change, and some of them never had one. Lots of them are living in a vicious circle where they are losing hope and never try again to seek for new jobs. And there seems to be no way out of it, out of this vicious circle. However, I have met also families who tried their best. They lived sometimes next to the house to those ones who couldn't succeed, but these families somehow gathered what little they had. Children stayed sometimes late at night to study for next day's school, and they had an immense amount of strength to try the thousandth time to apply for a job, which seemed sometimes very hopeless. And this immense amount of strength came sometimes from their faith. So I got really interested in this subject. And before winning the Robert Capa Fellowship I was photographing a lot there, but after that I returned. And I found out that there are almost no villages in northern and eastern Hungary where there wouldn't be a congregation, and there are almost no weekends where there wouldn't be an immersion. So I found out that this thing is way bigger than I thought, and by accidentally photographing it, I stepped into something very interesting. Dozens of small churches have a separate Roma mission and undertake pastorship for the Roma, converting the poor. It's very, very heartbreaking when you see those moments when people sing in these congregations, and sometimes it reminded me to psychological lessons when people have their problems shifted off their way. The latest studies estimate that the number of Roma people attending these various neo-Protestant congregations are around 20,000. 80% of them are attending mostly neo-Protestant and charismatic churches. This number also parallels to a worldwide tendency. While in the 1970s, 10% of the whole Christian community went to charismatic churches, and nowadays the number is about 25%. So by this we can say they are the biggest, the fastest growing religious group right now, maybe all over the world. Here we see the Methodist Church in Alsó Zsolca, where the congregation was founded in 1952. And here in the middle we can see Árpád Balog. We can say that he is quite typical in that he's also lost his job after the regime change, where the factory where he worked for in Miskolc has closed. And before his conversion, he even beated his family. He lived a quite hectic life, as he said. But right now, even his grandchildren attend various Bible classes in this Methodist church. And these weekends provide mostly the only opportunity for Árpád, who is without a workplace, to wear suits and dress up nicely, which I guess adds to being a human being. Here we see the worship leader, Dezső Vadász, in his home in Tiszavasvári. And these people mostly can be very, very proud that they can add to the congregation by playing various instruments. Typically popular in slums and poor neighborhoods, the success of the charismatic movement lies, among other things, in the fact that they believe that the Holy Spirit can take effect not only with the meditation of educated priests, but through anyone who accommodates it, be they illiterates, poor, or ex-convicts. I would say in this way this is a very democratic movement. The majority of new converts still believe in superstitions, say a curse, and as the study says, and many also seek for healing through blessings and in prayers. These must be also very rational, as hospitals are mostly far away and medicines cannot be afforded by many families. Here we see an exorcism in Taktasada. Also, I love these Bibles, which have been also made very personal by everybody. So it was also showed to me how we can say this become a very new hobby to everybody in religion. It was very interesting to see. Peace, love, and forgiveness. These are, among other things, the most what is seeked, says Father Lourdes, who is the head of the congregation in Köröm, which is a part of the Catholic Church, and who undertake also separate Roma missions. Here we see Mrs. Dezső Kocár, who is the oldest congregation member in Uszka. Uszka, a village which is very close to the Ukrainian border, of course in the poorest region of Hungary. And since the Hungarian Free Christian congregation converted most of the village in the 1970s, which is one of the moments where studies show this is the beginning of the charismatic movements in Hungary. So after that, even the pub has closed in Uszka. Here Claudia Farkas is crossing the river to meet his friends in the Roma neighborhood of Alsó Zsolca, and by crossing the river Sajó. This river has wreaked havoc in the region when there was huge amount of floods in 2010, and it spared the Roma part of the village. Many say that God had mercy upon the faithful Roma, so they say in the members of the Methodist congregation. In Hungary, it is also very typical that converts later became pastors who evangelize in neighboring towns and villages, and they create groups in private homes by reading the Bible, and having outgrown those, they establish community houses. Second and third generation believers who have been brought up in socialized in these communities together with their families and relatives are now becoming adults. This stable core ensures that by today most pastors and missionaries also come from Roma communities. Converts waiting for immersion near Horgos. The condition of immersion is converting to Jesus Christ, they say, and having faith in Him. Immersion symbolizes the absolution of sins, revival to resurrected life, and becoming an integral part of the congregation. Here we see Albert Durko, leader of the National Roma Mission of the Hungarian Pentecostal Church, which is called in Hungarian Pünkösdista Egyház, by immersing a congregational member in Kótai, Eastern Hungary. Here we see the preparations for Lakatos Lara's Christianing party. These events also provide an opportunity for the ones in the village to get together and strengthen their ties. Here I have photographed Valentin Német, who had an immersion later that day, and he shared his story that they not used to live like this 10 years ago. His father drank a lot, was not taking part in the family, but that changed after his conversion. And seeing how their life has changed, this has not surprisingly made Valentin to join the congregation as well, and being an active part of it. Mrs. Orgovány is studying the Bible at his home before she's preaching in Uszka. Orgovány, a congregational member, is picking walnuts as a day laborer near Uszka. Of course, there are not many job opportunities still, so they have to grab the little they can, and many are forced to become day laborers this way, of course. Of course, also it is very typical that many pastors have shadows in their past. Jan Orgovány is no exception of that, as he used to be a pimp in Budapest and abandoned his family. But he says that his life was a mess and he needed something new. And after converting, his sister was converted, and so maybe that was how he saw that there are other options as well. So after he converted, right now he leads the Congregation of the Light of Nations in Uska. And this shadow in his past and his turnover is also a huge amount of inspiration for the community, where they see that they can start from new, and maybe if he succeeded, I can do that too. István Kis has also a quite big shadow in his past, as he used to be a skinhead and beat those very Roma whom he is converting right now. He asked for forgiveness then, and he received it and started his life anew. Sadly or not, his skinhead friends. 99%, as the study shows, of the converts find themselves to become a better citizen as well. However, this was not the goal of their turnover. And as a documentary photographer, I found it very important after I've noticed that there are 20,000 people in Hungary doing something every weekend, and this has not been documented very much. And two thoughts I would like to leave you with is that Karl Marx said that religion is an opium for the masses, and sometimes I think a patient when in hospital needs also painkillers. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for this presentation. Jury, is there any questions? No, not this time. All right, I'll steal the show and go back to my video. So, thank you very much for these exciting and I think I say very professional presentations. And there is nothing, there is only words of thanksgiving from me to finalize this event. I have to thank the hard work of the three fellows throughout the last half year and before. Please give them a round. I would like to thank the work of the jury members who took their role really responsibly and made a great effort to come up with the best decision. Thank you all for that. Let me thank also my colleagues who worked very hard for us to be able to stand here today. First of all, Orsolya Körösi, Managing Director of the Capa Center, and also Judith Geller, Vivian Boranyák, Marta Hampel, and Eszter Gyöngyösi, many of whom are not present because they are attending Balázs Telek's funeral. The prize would have never been possible without the generous support of the Ministry of Human Capacities. Let me also thank the organizers of Art Market Budapest, especially Attila Ledényi, for having us here and providing us with this wonderful opportunity. The first awarding ceremony of the Robert Capa Photographic Grand Prize Hungary will be held at the Capa Center on October 21st at 6 p.m. on the occasion of Robert Capa's birth anniversary, where you can learn the decision which will be made by the jury members. It will be a public event and everyone is most welcome. Invitations will be sent out and more information will be available on our website and Facebook page. And these presentations, or at least in another form, will be available also on our website. Thank you all for coming and attending today's event, and see you hopefully very soon. Thanks.